Midnight Manhattan Mayhem. The city never slept, or so the legend said. But on that fateful night, New York City did more than simply remain awake. It fractured. In a realm where the present was nothing more than a fragile veneer over the raw turbulence of history, Alexander Alex Monroe found himself violently torn from his own time and hurled into a swirling vortex of incandescent light and temporal chaos. One moment, he had been alone in his state-of-the-art laboratory, a sanctum where quantum equations and futuristic devices mingled with mysterious archaic symbols etched into sleek metal, and the next, he was cast into the rain-soaked, neon-tinged streets of Manhattan during the tumultuous era of Prohibition. Alex's transition was cataclysmic. Gone were the sterile corridors and the pristine whiteness of his modern attire, replaced instantly by the worn fabrics and muted, earth-toned garments of the Roaring Twenties. He staggered onto a pavement slick with rain, his senses bombarded by the cacophony of a city on the edge. The hum of distant automobiles, the irregular flicker of neon signs, and the pervasive, smoky haze emanating from clandestine jazz clubs. The metropolis he now inhabited pulsated with a raw, untamed energy, where every cobblestone and every gaslit street corner bore witness to both unbridled ambition and unspeakable despair. As he began to wander the labyrinthine sidewalks of Manhattan, Alex marveled at the staggering collision of worlds. The present he had known, a world dominated by precise calculations, sterile technology, and relentless progress, had melted away to reveal an era defined by grit, survival, and the clandestine rhythm of underground life. The city was a living canvas of contradictions. Towering skyscrapers were yet to be born, and instead, modest brick buildings jostled with secret speakeasies hidden behind unassuming facades. The air, heavy with the scent of rain and smog, vibrated with the syncopated beats of jazz drifting from smoky clubs, while distant echoes of mobster turf wars punctuated the night with bursts of violence and whispered treachery. Amid this chaotic tableau, Alex's mind, steeped in the logic of his own time, struggled to reconcile the visceral reality before him with the certainty of his scientific knowledge. The quantum device that had flung him across time still pulsed subtly within his jacket pocket, a constant reminder that he was an anomaly in this temporal tapestry. Initially, his sole objective was survival, to gather as much data as possible, to understand this dissonance between eras, and to find a way back to the future he knew so well. Yet as the hours passed, it became increasingly clear that his arrival was no mere accident of time. The city itself, with its dark alleys and shimmering neon reflections, seemed to whisper secrets and conspiracies, a hidden network of forces that blurred the line between the past and the future. One humid, rain-drenched evening, as Alex made his way through a narrow, lamplit street in Lower Manhattan, he entered a dimly lit speakeasy tucked away behind an unremarkable facade. The interior was a world apart from the rain-soaked sidewalks. Hazy with cigarette smoke, the room vibrated with the melancholic strains of a muted trumpet and the clinking of glasses in low conversation. It was there, amid the throng of shadowy figures and clandestine deals, that Alex first noticed her, the woman whose eyes shone with an intensity that transcended the confines of time. She stood near the bar, her gaze fixed on something, or someone, beyond the immediate moment. Her presence was a paradox, both hauntingly familiar and utterly alien. In that single, electrifying glance, Alex felt an inexplicable connection that defied the rigid divisions of eras, a spark that challenged the unyielding logic of his scientific mind and ignited a dangerous, forbidden desire. Over the ensuing nights, as the city pulsed with the raw energy of jazz and violence, Alex began to piece together the dark tapestry that enveloped his new existence. Clues emerged in the form of subtle anomalies. a storefront where the modern met the archaic, a newspaper headline from a future era inexplicably printed on a 1920s press, and reflections in rain puddles that showed fleeting images of advanced technology seamlessly woven into the historical landscape. It soon became evident that behind the alluring decadence of the 1920s, an insidious force was at work. A mysterious future corporation, shrouded in secrecy and wielding technology far beyond the comprehension of the era's denizens, was manipulating history from the shadows. Their influence seeped through the cracks of time, twisting events, altering destinies, and imposing a cold, calculated order upon the natural chaos of life. Alex's investigations took him deep into the underbelly of the city, where the neon glow of jazz clubs intermingled with the violent whispers of mobster turf wars. He roamed rain-slicked alleys and crowded backstreets, gathering fragments of information from cryptic graffiti, hushed rumors, and fleeting encounters with individuals who seemed to carry the weight of forgotten secrets. Each discovery was both a revelation and a burden, a piece of a malevolent puzzle that threatened to upend the very fabric of time. The agents of the future corporation, figures clad in anachronistic uniforms that glowed with an otherworldly sheen, lurked in these shadows. They were relentless, pursuing him with a precision that chilled him to the core, a constant reminder that his every move was being scrutinized by forces determined to bend history to their will. The city of Manhattan itself became a living, breathing battleground. By day, it retained the familiar visage of a bustling metropolis on the brink of modernity, but by night, as the clock struck the witching hour, a surreal transformation took hold. The vibrant pulse of the 1920s merged with eerie, futuristic elements. Grand ballrooms and speakeasies pulsed with secret meetings of shadowy figures and high-tech devices, incongruous and yet hauntingly integrated, appeared in the most unexpected places. Neon lights clashed with the soft, flickering glow of gaslit lamps, creating a visual symphony of light and dark that mirrored the internal conflict raging within Alex. Haunted by memories of a future that had been meticulously constructed through sterile logic and cold calculation, Alex found himself torn between the rational clarity of his own time and the raw, unbridled passion of an era defined by its defiance of convention. His modern mind, accustomed to solving problems with equations and data, was ill-equipped to understand the emotional and ethical quandaries that now beset him. How could one intervene in the natural progression of history without risking untold consequences? And how could he, a man of science, justify a romance that defied the immutable laws of time? These questions plagued him as he navigated a labyrinth of conflicting impulses, each step forward accompanied by a growing sense of desperation to reclaim control over a destiny that seemed to be slipping through his fingers. In the smoky recesses of a dimly lit nightclub, where the sultry strains of a jazz saxophone mingled with the murmurs of clandestine conspiracies, Alex's internal struggle reached a fever pitch. Amid the swirling haze, the mysterious woman reappeared. Her presence was like a beacon, a solitary light cutting through the oppressive darkness of an era marked by both hope and despair. In her eyes, Alex saw not only the sorrow of countless lifetimes, but also the promise of a future where love, defiant and unyielding, might yet triumph over the inexorable tide of fate. Each stolen moment they shared, a fleeting touch, a lingering gaze in the depths of a crowded room, became a defiant act of rebellion against the deterministic machinations of time, a desperate bid to forge an unbreakable bond despite the insurmountable barriers of eras. Their connection, as intoxicating as it was doomed, served as both a salve and a torment. With every encounter, Alex's passion burned hotter, yet his scientific mind recoiled at the irrationality of it all. The paradox of their union, so deeply emotional yet fundamentally impossible, was a riddle that defied resolution. It challenged him to reconcile the clinical precision of his training with the chaotic, unpredictable nature of the human heart. The more he tried to rationalize their forbidden love, the more he felt himself slipping into a maelstrom of doubt and uncertainty, his identity fracturing under the weight of conflicting loyalties. Loyalty to his own era, to the ideals of progress and order, and loyalty to the raw, untamed emotions that now defined his existence. In the midst of this internal conflict, the machinations of the future corporation intensified. Their operatives, ever vigilant and methodical, began to close in on Alex with alarming precision. One foggy midnight, while the city was shrouded in a damp, spectral mist, he found himself pursued through the labyrinthine backstreets by a figure whose features glowed with a strange, futuristic luminescence. This spectral pursuer moved with an unnerving grace, a predator in the night whose presence was both anachronistic and terrifying. In that harrowing moment, as the rain pounded relentlessly against the pavement and the neon reflections danced madly on the slick asphalt, Alex realized with a jolt that he was not merely an unwitting traveler lost in the annals of time. He was a crucial pawn in a high-stakes game, a man whose very existence threatened to upset the carefully orchestrated balance between the past and the future. Desperation forced him into a frenzied quest to dismantle the corporation's grip on history. Guided by cryptic clues gleaned from furtive conversations and obscure fragments of data recorded on his temporal device, Alex embarked on a perilous mission that led him deep into the hidden underbelly of Manhattan. There, beneath the glittering facades of an era defined by its glamour and vice, he discovered secret laboratories and clandestine meeting rooms where futuristic technology was surreptitiously interwoven with relics of the past. In these grim, forgotten corners of the city, the corporation's dark experiments unfolded like a twisted carnival of innovation and terror, a grotesque marriage of cutting-edge quantum devices and ritualistic symbolism carved in stone and metal. Every piece of this nightmarish puzzle served as a stark reminder of the price that was being paid for the tampering of time. The erasure of free will, the corruption of history, and the slow, inexorable decay of human passion under the weight of a manipulated destiny. As the battle for control over history reached its zenith, Alex found himself facing an almost insurmountable choice. On a rain-drenched rooftop overlooking the sprawling, chaotic metropolis of Manhattan, amidst a tempest of neon light and shadow, he was encircled by the agents of the future, figures whose sleek, futuristic armor glinted ominously in the intermittent glow of the storm. Their eyes, burning with a cold, unyielding determination, bore into him as if he were the final barrier standing between their meticulously engineered future and the unruly, unpredictable past. The rooftop became a stage for a titanic confrontation, a surreal, heart-stopping ballet where the raw grit of the 1920s clashed violently with the clinical precision of a technology-driven tomorrow. In that climactic moment, every sense was heightened to an almost unbearable degree. The relentless patter of rain against concrete, the distant roar of sirens, and the cacophony of honking taxis merged into a symphony of chaos that underscored the gravity of his plight. With a fury born of desperation and the unquenchable fire of forbidden love, Alex fought with every ounce of his being. The struggle was as much internal as it was physical, a frenzied battle against the encroaching madness that threatened to swallow his rational mind whole. Each maneuver, every desperate dodge and counterattack, was a frantic bid to reclaim control over the very fabric of time. The neon reflections in the rain-soaked pavement became the silent witnesses to his determination, while the ghostly echoes of jazz and the distant clamor of mobster rivalries underscored the timeless clash of forces that he had unwittingly set in motion. Amid the ferocity of the battle, the forbidden connection with the enigmatic woman shone like a beacon of fragile hope. In the midst of the swirling chaos and clashing eras, the the stolen moments of intimacy between them. A fleeting touch, a shared look under the dim glow of a street lamp, became a defiant act of humanity against the cold tyranny of destiny. Their love, a luminous contradiction in a world ruled by ruthless efficiency, served as the ultimate counterpoint to the dark machinations that sought to rewrite history. It was a passion that defied the constraints of time, a flame that burned with the intensity of 1,000 forgotten dreams, and yet it was destined to be as ephemeral as the raindrops that fell ceaselessly from the stormy sky. In the final, heart-wrenching crescendo of that midnight melee, as the vortex of temporal energy churned dangerously close and the agents of the future began to falter, Alex made a fateful decision. With the weight of countless possibilities pressing upon him, he activated a hidden function on his temporal device, a desperate, last-ditch effort to disrupt the corporation's control over the continuum of time. The device, a brilliant fusion of modern quantum engineering and arcane circuitry, surged with raw, pulsating energy. In a blinding flash of light, the vortex erupted around him, tearing through the fabric of reality with a force that seemed capable of erasing the very boundaries between past and future. The ensuing explosion of quantum energy was cataclysmic. Shards of light and fragments of time cascaded through the air like crystalline raindrops, dissolving the futuristic agents into ephemeral motes that scattered into the night. For a long, excruciating moment, Manhattan itself seemed to tremble under the strain of this temporal upheaval. The rain slowed, the neon glow dimmed, and the cacophony of chaos gave way to an eerie, almost surreal silence. On the rain-soaked rooftop, as the vortex began to collapse and the tumult of battle subsided, Alex stood alone, battered yet unbowed. His heart pounded in his chest, a relentless drumbeat of defiance and hope in the face of overwhelming odds. In that moment of profound clarity, as dawn crept slowly over the horizon, the shattered fragments of the night coalesced into a vision of possibility. The futuristic corporation's insidious reach had been momentarily severed, and the raw, unyielding spirit of the 1920s reasserted itself against the cold tyranny of predetermined fate. The city, its slick pavements now reflecting a fractured mosaic of neon and soft morning light, seemed to exhale a collective sigh, a silent acknowledgement that, despite the relentless march of time, the human heart possessed an indefatigable capacity for renewal. With the promise of a reborn day glimmering in the distance, Alex gathered the remnants of his resolve and prepared to return to his own time. Yet as he stepped away from the rooftop battleground, his eyes lingered on the memory of the forbidden, transcendent love he had shared with the mysterious woman, a love that, in all its bittersweet beauty, had challenged the immutable laws of time and rewritten the rules of destiny. The realization that every moment, every pulse of passion, was an act of rebellion against the relentless forces of order filled him with a sense of purpose that transcended the mere desire to survive. His journey, he now understood, was not simply about reclaiming his own timeline but about preserving the fragile tapestry of human experience. A tapestry woven with threads of hope, despair, love, and defiance. As Alex activated the temporal device once more, its circuits pulsing softly with residual quantum energy, he cast one last, lingering glance at the rain-washed skyline of Manhattan, a city that had borne witness to his struggle and had, for one extraordinary night, vibrated with the eternal echoes of an era defined by both decadence and passion. The vortex enveloped him in its luminous embrace, carrying him back through the corridors of time, and as he faded into the stream of his own era, the memory of that night, of neon-lit alleyways, smoky jazz clubs, and the indomitable, forbidden spark of love, remained etched in his soul like a beacon for all those who dared to defy the rigid confines of destiny. In the aftermath of his temporal descent, As he found himself once more within the sterile sanctum of his modern laboratory, Alex carried with him the weight of an experience that transcended mere scientific curiosity. His mind, forever altered by the collision of eras, now danced to a new rhythm, one that resonated with both the cold precision of quantum logic and the warm, chaotic pulse of human emotion. Every equation he solved, every anomaly he recorded, was imbued with the memory of Manhattan's midnight mayhem, a reminder that history, in all its raw, unbridled beauty, was a living, breathing enigma waiting to be unraveled by those brave enough to confront its mysteries. The future was now an open canvas, painted with the hues of rebellion and redemption. Though the specters of the past and the futuristic agents had been momentarily vanquished, the struggle for the soul of time was far from over. Alex knew that the corporation's shadow would continue to stretch its cold fingers across the continuum, attempting to reshape the world in its own image of sterile perfection. But in that fractured, rain-soaked memory of Manhattan, he had discovered an immutable truth, that the human spirit, fueled by forbidden love, audacious passion, and an unyielding desire to carve its own destiny, could never be fully subdued by the relentless march of time. Thus, as the sterile hum of modernity resumed around him, Alex Monroe resolved to become not only a traveler of time but a guardian of its most delicate treasures, the memories, the passions, and the unpredictable, incandescent moments that defined what it meant to be human. With each leap through the vortex, each encounter with the ephemeral ghosts of history, he would carry the legacy of that tumultuous night, a night when the raw grit of the 1920s clashed with the futuristic ambitions of a corporation determined to control fate, when every neon-lit street and every rain-soaked alley became a battleground for the soul of a city, and when love, in its most forbidden and luminous form, proved to be the ultimate defiance against a destiny preordained by cold, unyielding logic. As the echoes of Manhattan's midnight mayhem reverberated through the corridors of time, the destiny of Alex Monroe and the myriad souls caught in the maelstrom of eras hung delicately in the balance, a balance that, with every beat of his resilient heart, promised that no matter how dark the future, the spark of humanity, ignited by passion and unbridled hope, would forever shine as a beacon in the eternal dance of time. And so, in the uncharted expanse of possibility, Alex stepped forward into his next leap, his temporal device pulsing like a living heart, ready to carve a new chapter into the annals of existence. A chapter where the fusion of science and mystery, of logic and madness, would continue to defy fate and illuminate the path toward an ever-unfolding destiny. New Orleans Jazz of Time. The humid night air of New Orleans draped the city in a velvety darkness punctuated by shimmering reflections of neon and gaslight. In a realm where every heartbeat pulsed with the rhythm of a bygone era, a solitary figure emerged, a traveler whose mind was forged in the crucible of future science and whose soul was haunted by the mysteries of time. Theodore Sinclair, known simply as Theo to those few who understood his existence, had spent his life dissecting the enigmatic fabric of time with the cold precision of quantum mechanics and the unyielding logic of technological advancement. Yet nothing in his meticulous studies had prepared him for the sensation of being ripped from his own era and cast into the chaotic embrace of New Orleans during the dazzling jazz age. One moment, Theo had been in his sleek, modern laboratory, surrounded by humming quantum devices and ancient artifacts meticulously integrated into futuristic instruments, a seamless fusion of state-of-the-art nanotechnology and cryptic runic inscriptions that hinted at secrets older than civilization. The next, he found himself hurtling through a swirling vortex of light and sound, the boundaries of reality dissolving into an overwhelming maelstrom. When the vortex finally yielded, he stood on rain-slicked cobblestones beneath a sky awash in deep indigos and purples, the air rich with the scent of magnolia and the distant strains of a trumpet wailing in a smoky jazz club. New Orleans sprawled before him, a city of paradoxes, where the exuberance of the jazz age collided with the soulful decay of hidden tragedies. The streets pulsed with life. Men in sharp suits and women adorned in glittering dresses moved with an elegant urgency, their laughter and whispered secrets mingling with the syncopated rhythms of live music. Every corner of the French Quarter exuded a heady mix of decadence and danger, the neon glow of speakeasies illuminating shadowed alleys where whispered rumors of prohibition fueled heists and mobster turf wars reverberated like a secret heartbeat. Theo's arrival, however, was not a mere accident of fate. His presence, a stark anachronism in this vibrant past, began to create subtle fissures in the fabric of time. At first, they were almost imperceptible, a glitch in a storefront display where modern advertisements flickered briefly among vintage posters, or a digital watch inexplicably visible on the wrist of a man dressed entirely in period attire. These anomalies grew steadily, forming patterns that hinted at a deeper, more insidious disturbance. As he wandered the labyrinthine streets, every rain-washed pavement and every dimly lit lamppost bore silent testimony to a collision of epochs, a melding of the raw, unbridled passion of the 1920s with the clinical, unyielding precision of a future yet to come. In the midst of this temporal disarray, Theo's path intersected with the soul of New Orleans itself. On a sultry night heavy with the scent of rain and the electric promise of jazz, he ventured into a smoky club tucked away in a narrow alley of the French Quarter. Inside, the air vibrated with the seductive, melancholic strains of a trumpet, its notes bending and weaving through the murmur of secretive conversations and clinking glasses. It was here that he first saw her, a woman whose gaze held the weight of countless lifetimes and whose presence radiated both mystery and melancholy. She was draped in a dress reminiscent of the era, her eyes dark pools reflecting sorrow and defiant hope. In that fleeting, wordless moment, an indescribable bond ignited between them, a forbidden connection that defied the rigid dictates of time and sparked an inner turmoil that would soon escalate into a maddening struggle. As days melted into nights, Theo found himself drawn deeper into the duality of his new reality. The exuberant spirit of New Orleans, so celebrated for its vibrant music, soulful art, and fierce independence, began to show signs of decay. In whispered corners and forgotten alleyways, fragments of a dystopian future emerged, a vision of a world where the pulsating life of jazz had been brutally suppressed by a totalitarian regime. In this grim tomorrow, the raw emotional power of music had been replaced by sterile, mechanical rhythms enforced by an iron-fisted authority that sought to control every note, every heartbeat, every spark of human passion. It was as if the city's soul, so freely expressed in the syncopated improvisations of its musicians, had been locked away in a vault of oppression, its once luminous vibrancy dimmed by the cold calculus of power. The realization struck Theo with the force of a thunderclap. His temporal displacement was not an isolated anomaly, but a catalyst that was creating paradoxes with dangerous implications. His mere presence in the jazz age was destabilizing the natural order, triggering events that rippled across time and threatened to erase the soulful legacy of New Orleans. The Future Corporation, a shadowy, omnipresent entity from his own time, had long sought to control history, to impose a vision of the future devoid of the raw, unbridled emotion that characterized the human spirit. Now, as he stood amidst the jazz-soaked streets and neon-lit decadence of the 1920s, their influence loomed ominously like a specter over the city. Driven by an urgency he had never known, Theo set out on a quest to unravel the mystery behind these temporal paradoxes. His investigation led him through the underbelly of the city, where the vibrant surface gave way to a darker, more insidious reality. In forgotten speakeasies, behind the facade of glittering opulence, he uncovered evidence of clandestine operations orchestrated by the Future Corporation. In a hidden basement beneath an unremarkable building, he discovered a laboratory where advanced quantum devices were intermingled with relics of the past, an apparatus that, with every meticulously calculated pulse, manipulated the flow of time like a puppeteer pulling invisible strings. The sight filled him with both awe and dread, for it was a stark reminder that the forces he faced were not mere remnants of chance, but part of a deliberate, malevolent design aimed at rewriting history. Every discovery deepened Theo's internal conflict. His scientific training, grounded in the certainty of equations and empirical data, clashed violently with the chaotic, unpredictable nature of human emotion and creativity that he encountered in the soulful embrace of the Jazz Age. Each step he took further into the tangled web of time brought him face to face with ethical dilemmas that defied simple resolution. How could he, a traveler from a future governed by order and logic, interfere in a time defined by its raw, unfiltered passion without corrupting the essence of what made it so vibrant? Could he dare to form a bond with the enigmatic woman, a connection as beautiful as it was doomed, knowing that every stolen moment risked unraveling the delicate tapestry of history? These questions echoed relentlessly in his mind, tormenting him with the possibility that altering even a single note in the symphony of time could unleash consequences of unimaginable magnitude. In the pulsating heart of a bustling nightclub, where the smoky ambience was thick with the scent of bourbon and the rhythmic improvisations of a live band, Theo's inner turmoil reached its zenith. The seductive strains of a trumpet, resonating through the haze, became the soundtrack of his internal battle, a cacophony of hope, despair, and defiance. Every fleeting glance exchanged with the mysterious woman ignited a spark of rebellion in his soul, while the shadow of the Future Corporation loomed ever larger, a reminder that every act of passion was an act of defiance against a predestined, sterile order. The juxtaposition of the exuberant culture of the 1920s and the oppressive vision of a controlled tomorrow formed a maddening paradox that threatened to shatter his resolve. As the neon glow of the club's sign mingled with the spectral light of his own time, Theo felt as if he were suspended between two eternities, a living embodiment of the struggle between unbridled human spirit and the inexorable march of a future dictated by cold, calculated power. With every passing night, the city's dual nature became more pronounced. By day, New Orleans shone with the brilliance of its storied past, a city where every street corner, every wrought iron balcony, whispered tales of legendary musicians and rebels who had dared to defy convention. But when darkness fell, the same streets transformed into corridors of surreal horror and resistance. The music that once flowed freely became a muted echo beneath the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a dystopian regime, and the vibrant murals that adorned the walls of historic neighborhoods now bore the scars of censorship and decay. In this twilight realm, Theo's mission evolved from mere survival to a desperate, maddening battle to preserve the very soul of the city. Haunted by the dual specters of his own fragmented past and the dystopian future that threatened to erase the legacy of New Orleans, Theo embarked on a perilous journey through the city's most hidden enclaves. In the labyrinthine alleyways of the French Quarter, amidst the swirling fog and the dissonant notes of a lone saxophone, he uncovered clandestine gatherings of artists, musicians, and renegades, souls who had refused to let the oppressive forces snuff out the flame of creativity. These secret assemblies, held in abandoned warehouses and behind locked doors of forgotten buildings, were a testament to the indomitable resilience of the human spirit. They gathered to celebrate the raw, unpolished beauty of jazz, to defy the totalitarian edict that sought to homogenize culture, and to remind themselves that the legacy of their art was timeless, transcending the constraints of any era. In these hidden sanctuaries, Theo encountered individuals whose stories resonated with his own. A drifter with a haunting past, a painter whose canvases captured the ephemeral beauty of a moment, a saxophonist whose melancholy melodies echoed the pain of lost love and forgotten dreams. Each soul, each fragment of a once vibrant history, was a reminder that the city's heartbeat lay in its defiant creativity. Yet, even as he drew strength from these kindred spirits, the relentless specter of the future corporation pressed in upon him. Their agents, ghost-like figures clad in a surreal fusion of period attire and futuristic armor, moved silently through the streets, their every step calculated, their every glance a threat. The corporation's ambition was clear: to rewrite history in their own cold, mechanistic image, to erase the spontaneous, unruly expression of human emotion, and to impose a future where art, passion, and individuality were nothing more than relics of a forgotten past. Caught in the swirling vortex of time and ideology, Theo's internal conflict deepened with each heartbeat. The forbidden romance that had ignited with the mysterious woman, whose identity seemed woven from the very fabric of New Orleans itself, became both his solace and his greatest torment. In clandestine encounters beneath the soft glow of street lamps and the furtive shadows of crumbling courtyards, their union burned with a desperate intensity. Yet the knowledge that their love was an anachronism, a spark that defied the relentless march of chronological order, filled him with a profound melancholy. How could two souls, born in different eras and tethered to disparate destinies, ever hope to defy the immutable laws of time? This question, insidious and persistent, gnawed at him as relentlessly as the distant hum of the future corporation's surveillance. A reminder that every moment of passion was a risk, a leap into an uncertain abyss where the past and future converged in a maddening dance. As the nights wore on, the struggle for the city's soul reached a fevered pitch. In a climactic confrontation on a rain-slick rooftop overlooking the chaotic tapestry of Manhattan, where the neon reflections intermingled with the old-world charm of brick and stone, Theo stood alone against the tide of agents from the future. The downpour blurred the boundaries of time, each droplet a shimmering shard of history, as the agents advanced with an unyielding, spectral determination. Their presence, a blend of the sleek technology of tomorrow and the austere austerity of a bygone era, was both mesmerizing and horrifying. In that charged moment, the rooftop became a crucible where every element, every flash of lightning, every pounding heartbeat, every whispered note of a distant jazz melody, coalesced into a singular, overwhelming force. With his temporal device clutched tightly in his hand, Theo summoned every ounce of resolve he possessed. In a final, desperate gambit, he activated a hidden function within the device, a surge of quantum energy that reverberated through the very fabric of the night. The vortex, which had once cast him into this turbulent past, roared to life once more, its luminous tendrils tearing through the oppressive darkness. In a blinding burst of light, the agents of the future were consumed by a cascade of radiant particles, their forms dissolving like mist in the morning sun. For a suspended, heart-stopping instant, the world seemed to hold its breath as the forces of order and chaos battled for dominion over time itself. When the explosive burst of quantum energy subsided, the rooftop was left drenched in an eerie calm. The relentless rain softened to a gentle drizzle, and the neon glow of the city's heartbeat flickered uncertainly against the encroaching light of dawn. In that fragile silence, Theo stood amid the ruins of the battle, his body bruised but his spirit ignited by a fierce, defiant hope. The paradox of that night, a a collision of the exuberant soul of the jazz age with the sterile ambitions of a dystopian future, had not only altered the trajectory of history but had also rekindled the timeless, indomitable essence of human creativity and love. In the aftermath, as the first tentative rays of the sun illuminated a city reborn from the tumult of its own contradictions, Theo realized that his journey was far from over. The events of that night had etched themselves indelibly into his being, a mosaic of pain, passion, and revolutionary defiance that would guide his every future leap through time. The forbidden romance he shared with the mysterious woman, with its luminous intensity and bittersweet impermanence, was a constant reminder that the human heart possessed a power that transcended the rigid confines of chronology, a power capable of igniting revolutions in the darkest hours and of rewriting destiny one ephemeral, incandescent moment at a time. As he prepared once more to step through the temporal portal, the device in his hand pulsing softly like a heartbeat resonating with quantum mystery, Theo cast a final, lingering gaze over the transformed city. Manhattan had been his battleground, a place where the raw grit of the past had clashed with the unyielding force of the future, and where every raindrop, every flicker of neon, and every echo of jazz had contributed to a symphony of defiance against the tyranny of predetermined fate. The relentless struggle for the soul of time was a burden he now bore with a quiet dignity, a promise that no matter how advanced the machinations of power, the chaotic, passionate spirit of humanity would endure. Thus, in the quiet moments before the vortex beckoned him back to his own era, Theo embraced the paradox of his existence, a traveler forever caught between epochs, where the inexorable march of time was tempered by the infinite, unpredictable power of love and creativity. In that suspended heartbeat of midnight, amid the haunting echoes of jazz and the resplendent glow of neon dreams, he knew that the legacy of New Orleans, of Manhattan, and of every soul that dared to defy destiny would resonate eternally, a beacon of hope, a testament to the timeless, incandescent defiance of the human spirit. And so, with the city's fractured skyline receding into a mosaic of light and shadow, and with the memory of that unforgettable night etched into every fiber of his being, Theo Sinclair stepped into the swirling vortex, carrying with him the fierce conviction that even as the future sought to impose its cold order upon the past, the wild, untamed cadence of life, embodied in the soulful rhythms of jazz and the fierce pulse of forbidden love, would forever triumph over the tyranny of time.